welcome to the Trinity Force Podcast. Yo, it's that Triforce cast beaming straight to your home. Grab a beer so we know Pone ain't drinking alone. Send an email, a quick tweet, just pick up the phone. Leave a message, hit the beep if you're a creep, watch your tone. Discuss the meta game, patch notes, whatever helps your stats most. Obi-Pone Kenobi is your last hope to snatch gold. So grab your headphones and join in the fun. We'll try and force in some jokes and some cringeworthy puns. Yo, we can make it together, people. Trinity Force Podcast. These boys are second to none. Now that's the end of the intro. It's time we begun.
And there it is, episode 436. We are live and ready to talk about the mid-season items. You guys got an earful of Zaya Rakan and the tank update in the last episode. And today we're going to jump into more of that, if I can talk properly. So Serial and Dom are with us tonight.
Yes, we are.
They all zone out as I'm doing my intro, as I would too if somebody else was doing an intro.
I had way more enthusiasm than Mitch did. I want to note that.
It's been noted in the log.
Yeah, I had to put on my Ruziani jersey, celebrate hockey, round 2. This is gigantic though, and it looks like I'm a monk. So,
what's it like adopting the monk life?
I'm starting to shave my head and get some powers, but I might have some very wrong misconceptions about what monks do, thanks to video games and anime. So
makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, there's a perception that they're fighters. Every monk is supposed to be this martial arts master,
and they use their fists.
This is gonna be a great segue into nothing. So how about we just talk about the mid-season update? Yeah,
there's only 3 of us tonight. No Chi-Ra, no Punchinello, no Santana. And once again, Todd is predisposed, but he has a legitimate excuse, unlike everybody else.
Yep.
So, we are going to talk about specifically the tank item updates this evening, as there are other items still being tweaked or worked on, and we will get to those come Monday as we have more information. Because we are assuming that we're rolling into the patch as of next week, and they are still slowly updating some of the champions and whatnot. And so what will happen is we'll go over them for the next 3 days, and then starting when the patch comes out, we will talk about the items we'll talk about the champions again, we'll talk about the items, we'll just kind of like do an overall recap of what we think you should be playing, what we think is good, and any other changes that may have come along with the patch, just so you guys have a timeline of what we're looking at going into the future.
It's funny, we've never really come up with a correct outline, like a episode outline for doing these, because they're so infrequent, but we always have 4 or 5 episodes each time, and so it's always kind of all over the place. And thankfully we can do something like a recap once we're done, because this is even in the last episode we were talking changes that were going on during the episode, because there were PvE posts or PvE boards posts coming while we were trying to discuss, this just came up. Oh, that's not helpful. Well, we have no idea. Why are we speculating about this too hard?
Yeah, it doesn't look like any of the items are going to change all that much, at least the big ones. They look pretty static as of right now. Maybe a little bit of health changes here and there, but
It took this update for me to realize just how many tank items are in the game. It feels like you only run into the same 3 or 4, and I guess that ends up including stuff like Locket. But, I mean, there are so many tank items in this game. Holy shit.
Do we want to talk? Are we going to do those first, or do we want to because there's 2 new items, brand new items coming out that I don't know if we're talking Rift. If we're going on the document as we normally do, or okay, fine.
So speaking of the newest items that are going to be hitting the Rift, we have Adaptive Helm and Gargoyle Stone Plate.
Oh, we're just gonna skip Rift Herald then. Okay, I thought. All right, that's what I was asking.
I want Sean here for Rift Herald.
Okay, sure, that's fine. All right, Adaptive Helm.
Yeah. I want Sean here because he has some words to pick to Riot. He has a bone to pick with Riot about the changes to Rift Herald. Not in a bad way, but more so in a way of stop stealing our ideas, you sons of bitches. So fair. Adaptive Helm. The recipe for Adaptive Helm is a Null Magic Mantle, a Specter's Cowl, a Rejuvenation Bead, and 1,000 gold. The total cost of it is 2,800 gold. It'll give you 300 health, 55 magic resistance, 100% base health regeneration, 10% CDR, and it has a passive on it that's unique. Taking magic damage from a spell or effect reduces all subsequent magic damage taken from that spell or effect by 15% for 4 seconds.
So I had no chance to go and look at the way that actually interacts with things. Originally, when I first read that, I interpreted it to mean like when you get hit by the same ability thereafter, the damage is reduced by 15%. And so I interpreted that to mean like Cassiopeia can't machine gun you down with her E the way that you're otherwise used to. But then when I really thought about that, that's stupid because Cassiopeia is about the only champion in the game that really does anything like that.
Yeah, it's so I was thinking about this on the drive home because originally I thought that this ability was like if once you took magic damage for 4 seconds you took 15% reduced magic damage, which on further thought is crazy strong and is why that is not what this item is, because that would be absolutely bonkers. But what I thought about was in as far as like AD goes, as far as I guess resistances to AD, you have items that are for different types of AD. Like you have the you can go heavy armor, you can go reflecting damage, you can go less critical strike damage. Especially now with Randuin's getting a buff on that amount. There's not really something like that for I don't think for magic damage, but it's kind of weird because you're saying like I want to deal with a team that has a bunch of consistent damage, maybe like a Nivea ultimate, or I was thinking the same thing with Cassiopeia, like Karthus lay waste coming down like a bunch.
There you go.
Sure. Yeah, that's another one. It's like touch. Multiple casts. Deathfire touch is see, like it's like those are so weird to think about because you're like you have to have the right enemy comp to feel like this item seems good in the same way that you build Frozen Heart versus a heavy attack speed comp. Even that is still built a lot. This just I don't know what the point is. If it was maybe like you took 15% less damage from a specific enemy champion after they dealt magic damage to you, that would still be very strong against the likes of, like, it'd be crazy strong against like Vigar or somebody who bursts you down super hard. But the way that it's worded is so funky to me.
It seems like it's repeated damage from an ability. So I don't want to just pigeonhole that into damage over time because my suspicion is that like Aurelion Sol's orbs would actually fall into that category.
Sure.
Because it's just the one ability that's dealing damage at whatever rate it does. And so I thought about it and it's just sort of like there are a handful of champions who deal a lot of damage over a window of time, like from one ability, as opposed to you like a full combo or something to that effect. Like this actually, I kind of think this is going to hit Katarina in a weird way for tanks, just because like her ult is going to do considerably less damage now if this works the way I think it's going to. I mean, the first application of it's going to hit hard, and then after that it's reduced by 15% on top of all the magic resistance that this thing has on it.
I need to know if there is an eternal cooldown on this or if it can stack, because if I get smacked with a brand W and then Deathfire Touch starts ticking or his passive starts ticking, do I take 15% reduced damage from both Deathfire Touch and his passive ticking, or do I only get one of those? And then if somebody like a Cassiopeia walks up and starts machine gunning me, do I take full damage from her, or is it unique per what ability am I taking? Taking the damage from?
I think that I would think that you'd be able to. It would stack separately for each different ability. Like in that instance, Deathfire Touch and Blaze would have a different, like their own. It would work for both, and I would think that you would. I would think that it would refresh because you're technically taking magic damage from it. But this is so weird. I don't know. Like that's,
know who gets hit hard by this? Syndra.
But
on her ult. Her ult just gets dumpster.
Yeah, but but
really. anyone who's just hitting with that,
anyone who's just using this.
Yeah, if somebody has
that's a good point. But still, it's like that hits Syndra pretty hard.
So does it though? Because it depends how it's coded. Because if all the damage is actually coded as an upfront thing, but comes into you in chunks because of the balls, then maybe it doesn't reduce. It just depends how the ability is coded and how it actually works.
So something I was thinking about this. And I don't know if this is like the right scenario. I think they just wanted to make another like item that builds out of like Spectre's Cowl, because the way that they've changed up a bunch of stuff with does Banshees Veil still build out of it? I think it does. No, it doesn't. So like all you're left with at this point is Spirit Visage, I guess, coming out of so like that early item that a lot of people will build against like a Vladimir top, like doesn't go into anything else for a while. So maybe that's kind of what they're doing, is saying like we need another Spectre's Cowl item. That's a shitty reason, I guess. I don't really know why that would be the case, but I was also thinking like they need more heavy magic resist items, like specifically magic resist, because now Guardian Angel doesn't have it. Like that is off the item now.
The Crystal Scar had an item called Odin's Veil, which had
I know Odin's Veil.
350 health, 350 mana, 50 magic resist, a unique passive that reduced and stored 10% of the magic damage you received, and a unique active that dealt 200 plus the stored magic damage, a maximum of 400, to nearby enemy units.
Yep, I remember that.
I always wanted to see that make its way to Summoner's Rift and just see what kind of havoc it would wreak.
It would be overpowered on Summoner's Rift.
Yeah,
it would be. Absolutely. I think there's a lot of testing that needs to go into Adaptive Helm, and it might be something we need to jump on the PvE and sit in the training thing and just
it'll be out next week.
Spells at each other.
I think that it will be that kind of Frozen Heart style item where it's going to be good against specific champions. Obviously, it's going to be good against specific champions. Otherwise, if it's like one pop of something, it's not going to, like, you're getting nothing out of the ability.
Right.
So I could see it being like I don't know how many if there's a champion comp that is just like, let's all do DOT stuff. That doesn't exist. So this isn't a raid boss. So I don't know what they would. I don't know. This is funky.
My suspicion is that unless something about this is way more powerful than anybody, really, because even glancing at the forum boards, like nobody understands this passive and really what it's supposed to be doing. So unless this is way more powerful and everybody is able to figure out at face value, I kind of feel like this item is going to quickly go overlooked. Yeah, unless you really need health regen, magic resist, CDR, and then flat health.
Let's talk about Gargoyle Stoneplate then. Another magic resist item coming into the game. Chain Vest Negatron Cloak, 980 gold for a total of 2,500 gold. 40 armor, 40 magic resist. If 3+ enemy champions are nearby, grants 40 bonus armor magic resist. It has a unique active as well. Increases health by 40%, increases champion size, but reduces damage dealt by 60% for 4 seconds. If Stone Skin is active, the health increase becomes 100% instead.
And that damage reduction part is the part that really confuses me.
I've been thinking about this item more.
Wait, what do you mean?
I don't understand why you would want it.
I like
what type of champion has such good
heavy
crowd
CC,
control?
Heavy Nautilus
on a low cooldown.
New Sejuani.
You don't. I've been thinking about this item a lot.
She was the only champion I could come up with as a good example.
You don't need low cooldowns to be able to use this item effectively, because back when ZZ Rot, granted that helped you push, but granted that there was a passive on ZZ Rot that helped you in laning phase, but a lot of times I would pick up ZZ Rot throughout the game because it just gave you flat stats that you might need if you already had enough health through other items. And so picking up Gargoyle Stoneplate replaces ZZ Rot in that, where you're just getting a fuckload of resistances, and so now you can start building health. And the Metallicize active is just icing on the cake. Somebody, Singe, might build this as a 5th item or something. I could see Malphite putting this into a 2nd item because it gives you a little bit of both that helps with this pass and everything. Like, just the fact that if you like Malphite, for example, you ult in, you pop the item, you now have a fuckload of extra health and stuff, and you can't be burst down into the fact he doesn't necessarily need to do damage over time. He just has a low enough cooldown through his abilities to cause disruption and help keep the enemy team together. I mean, he slows with his Q, he slows attack speed with his E, type of things like that. Sejuani's another good example of that. Scion is a good example where he's got enough disruption in his kit between armor shred and pop-ups and everything that as long as you're not dying after initial engage, this item helps you out a lot.
I mean, I do think the flat stats and then the passive part of it are great for basically every bruiser in the game. think about how many champions could get away with just buying this item and then focusing on nothing but damage stuff otherwise. Against mixed damage comps.
Yeah,
I mean, I think that the interesting thing about it is you might sit on part of this for a while. I don't think it's going to you can't build this early. Like it doesn't work in laning phase because you're just like, let's get more just flat resistances. I can't think of many champions that want just flat resist. They need health or CDR. They need something on top of that. But as you're saying, when you hit the team fight point, if you are a team fight champ like those ones you mentioned, I think it'll be pretty good. A pick comp champion, not so much. So you have to, like, I think Sejuani, as we've all agreed, so this is about the only one we've all agreed on so far, is like 100%. This is great. The new Sejuani, mind you, if you haven't figured out what's going on with that, please listen to the last episode. But it has to be something that either dishes out like a ton of CC, or like obviously a ton of CC, or, and I was just thinking about this, what about this scenario where something of yourself scales with your health a lot?
Yeah, I mean,
because well, no, not necessarily that, but also like, so new Stoneborn Pact has a modifier where people gain health back based on your max health, and now you're doubling that amount for an amount of time. You're like a new or something. So
yeah,
that's another like, you also got to factor in not just that you reduce the damage, but there are some things that are very good scaling with health that are not just I don't die as fast. Plus, I have 80 armored magic resist on top of it.
I looked at this and I looked at the item cost, and one of my thoughts was like, this is kind of in support item territory. It's generalist stats. Supports aren't really known for dealing a whole lot of damage, at least, the tank supports. So having extra health is nice. You can get cooldown reduction from other places. So, but then I started thinking like, what supports are going to really want this? Leona? Oh wait, Leona can press W and do the same thing without spending 2,500 gold. Alistar presses R and, gets all the benefit.
Braum, maybe?
Yeah, maybe Braum.
I mean, it's also
Thresh
like,
could do it.
It's also the problem I think with supports is that it's highly gold inefficient until you have that passive going or you use the active, because you're literally just getting the same amount of stats from a Chain Vest and a Negatron Cloak, but then you paid a combined cost to get no additional stats, just flat. And so,
but
but if it's something that you're going to need to stay alive, like if we figure out which support that is, I was also thinking Rakan, like if he just jumps in there and he's like, maybe I don't know, like that
supports are rarely by themselves. Like they'll be warding by themselves and everything, but they're not looking for fights on their own.
Oh no, 100%. Not.
So that the passive tends to actually work pretty well right there. I'll certainly give it a shot if I can afford it, but I just don't know why I would ever buy this over Locket.
You're not going to. This isn't. The only time I can see this being a support item is if somehow you're rich enough to pair this with the whatever, the Knight's Vow or whatever it is, the other items like Serial mentioned, right? This is strictly a tank item. Because you give up too much. Even just building Knight's Vow is better than building this item. So you have to be the richest support ever.
I like what they're trying to do. They're trying to do an item that encourages, grouping up and fighting as opposed to just doing split push stuff. But that reduces damage dealt part to me just really, really.
I don't know. If you're having
this item,
if you're having like a frontline attrition battle, which I talked about a couple episodes with the reemergence of high damage dealing but over time carries with the Kog'Maws and Twitches and Banes coming into play. Like if it does switch to that slower meta that's still like needing team fights but very elongated ones, that's going to be very effective, because losing 60% damage when you also don't do a lot of damage to the front line that you're probably next to, like your front line to front line kind of situation, it's not going to be that big of a deal, but you'll stay alive for a crazy amount longer if you have that 100% health. That's the scenarios I see it working, and I like the idea, but I don't know if we don't know. This is
who loves this item? Mundo loves this item. Because Mundo can jump into a team fight. Mundo can do some damage real quick, 2 seconds worth. Pop this item, have the extra 40 bonus armored magic resist, then pop his ultimate, which is gaining life based on his total amount of health he has, and just gain a fuckload of life and stay alive, and then continue to disrupt. Mundo loves this item.
You know who else loves this item? Tanks and ARAMs. And
Yeah,
especially Mundo.
absolutely.
Mundo's one I thought of because I love playing him in ARAMs because it's you just throw cleavers forever.
you hit a certain point and then you win the game just because you're Mundo and they can't kill you.
Yep.
Well, let's talk about Dead Man's Plate, a favorite on Lee Sin mains and others that like to dive in and do a lot of damage. It is being changed this upcoming patch. The total amount of health was reduced on it to 425 from 500. However, the armor has been increased to 60 from 50. It now only deals bonus magic damage at basic attacks when at 100 stacks. And the unique passive is now Dreadnought. Chains for momentum quickly decays while under the effect of a stun, taunt, fear, polymorph, and mobilizing effect. And slowly decays, well, so that's what it used to be. It is now momentum decays while under the effects of a stun, taunt, fear, polymorph, or mobilizing effect, as well as basic attacking.
Oh. Okay. I hadn't really read this super well before. And so it's saying that it doesn't decay super quick anymore during all of those.
But it decays if you take actions.
Right.
Well, no, that already happened. Like you would always pop the 100 stack or the 100 or whatever you were at stacks if you auto attack. Now it's saying if you're not up to 100 stacks, it'll just remove some of it. It won't get rid of your entire stacking at that point. So I think that's actually kind of smart. You're saying you're going to you want to get the full charges, obviously, get the momentum up so you can do that slowing, like pretty hard hitting attack, but you won't discharge the entire thing if you have to auto attack something in the meantime.
It's a weird buff nerf. Buff in that you get to hold on to it, nerf in that it doesn't help you to push the lane as much if you bought it early in the lane or you were running through the jungle and using the stacks to attack monsters or whatever it may be. That's why I say it's a weird buff nerf.
I'm willing to bet that the ambient damage coming out of this item was more meaningful than people realized, but because you never really felt it aside from the first hit, that's why they're changing it.
There's also this is the first one. I want to make a point of noting this as we go down the next few items. Almost all of the items that have health and a resist attached to it, either magic resist or armor, are getting that health reduced, usually in favor of the resist going up. I don't know if this is because of stuff like Metallicize that we just talked about, where you get like a shit ton of just health. But it's something that is happening and is worth noting that health is going down on items across the board in terms of tanks.
If I'm recalling correctly, it was mostly because it was pretty unfair for tanks to get to double dip on every single item. Like, 80 carries don't get attack speed, crit, lifesteal, and damage off of one item and everything. Like, they have to work. And mages don't, it's hard for mages to get ability power, mana, cooldown reduction, and mana regen and everything. They want people to have to make sort of calculated decisions. And if you want a lot of health, there is an item for that. But for you to get a lot of health and the resistances that you wanted on basically all of the tank items, save ZZ Rot and the old Guardian Angel, was pretty very nice to the tank players and everything, but pretty difficult for everyone else to deal with.
Well, before we move on to the next item, I need to take a moment and read this letter that I just pulled out to our editor. Dear editor,
that was nice.
Thank you. Dear editor of the Trinity Force podcast notes, please have some continuity in how you write them. The next item has health reduced to 350 from 500. However, the other ones have health reduced from 500 to 425. I would appreciate this very much as it makes it easier to read the notes. Sincerely, fuck you. No.
Hey, was this is this from a former GG Chronicle writer? Because I feel like that might be the case. And this is coming from the former editor of the GG Chronicle? I don't quite know what you guys did there. I'm going to be honest.
For those of you not watching the live show, Tom just slowly brought up the middle finger with a smile on his face. But let's talk about Randuin's Omen. Build path, Ruby Crystal, Warden's Mail.
That'll teach me to copy and paste.
I still appreciate what you do, Dom. Regardless if it's one way or the other. I just had to give you shit.
Do you, Adam?
I don't. Fuck you. Ruby Crystal, Warden's Mail, Ruby Crystal now. And plus 1,100 gold. It is now 2,900 gold total. Health reduced from 500 to 350. Armor unchanged, still 60. Unique passive reduces damage from critical strikes by 20%. Now this is up from 10%, and it is unique. I don't think it was previously unique, correct?
It's still unique. It's unique. Oh no, sorry, it isn't. It isn't. You can stack randoms. My bad.
Right. So
Yeah,
now-
you
now it's-
could always stack it. There's some funny videos where Yasuo deals like no damage.
And it has a second unique passive, Cold Steel. When hit by basic attacks, reduces attackers' attack speed by 15% for 1 second. It also has a unique active, slows the movement speed of nearby units by 55% for 2 seconds. And this previously was 35% for 4 seconds. Now, if you recall, what was it? 2, maybe 3 seasons ago, Randuin's Omen was slowing by about 60%, I want to say. And they nerfed that quite a bit, made people stop buying Randuins, and they changed it around. I know that I should have looked into this previously, but I know that item was de facto tank item. And but with them reducing the health cost, I can see why they're giving back some of the movement slowing active effects, since you're not getting as many free stats out of the item anymore.
Oh,
No,
the slow used to scale off of
Your armor and magic resist.
Yeah,
There you go.
forgot about that.
Yeah, I remember
Which
it
is-
used to slow by fuckload.
Yeah,
It was just you could get the duration to such a crazy amount if you had a ton of armor and magic resist, which just doesn't make sense when you like that. That would just be, it was pretty stupid. But then they added the critical strike portion of this. So the thing that was changed in the build path is it went from Warden's Mail and Giant's Belt to Warden's Mail and 2 Ruby Crystals. So you have a bigger combined cost, but an easier, like the second point, like of having 2 Ruby Crystals versus Giant's Belt is easier if you have the item slots. Obviously harder if you don't, but it's
Yeah,
like
it
200
sucks.
gold easier.
yeah,
So,
I hate that. I hate changes like that. It had a nice. I mean, what's even building out of a Giant's Belt anymore?
Sunfire.
And
Sunfire, Warmog.
no, Sunfire
No,
is a
Sunfire.
bomb.
Oh, it's Bombies. I'm very
Yeah.
drunk.
No,
Warmog's Dead Man's
Warmog's.
Plate and Frozen Mallet.
Yeah.
Thank you, LawWiki, for being right on hand.
Glad you guys have it available.
I have the internet, so yes, it is available.
I do like Randuin's Omen. I still think this item is worth picking up. If they didn't change too much on this to make it at any point for me to go, well, you probably shouldn't buy Randuin's. It's just not the de facto buy with the amount of health that you're getting out of it anymore.
This one might be sneaky good, given changes to the other, like to the attack damage items and everything, and just in general the amount of health that's no longer going to be available. It might be a case where critical strike becomes a much more popular build path for AD carries, and if that's the case, then this item becomes like really, really, really good.
Yeah, it does, and I think that people need to pay a bit more attention to this item, not just because you're getting more efficiency out of that critical strike reduction, because that is 20% is, I mean, that up from 10% is very significant change.
Sure.
But you need to pay attention and realize if I'm in the middle of the game, I'm like, I need an armor and a health item. What should I go for? I'll go with Randuin's. Why not? Recognize the fact that unless you're going for the critical strikes, it's not going to be as worth it, especially now because you just lost 150 health for no extra armor. The bonus you got was that 10% extra critical strike damage reduction. The active is you could kind of call that a wash depending on how you feel that the team fights are going, because you went from you got half the duration of a slow, but for a stronger slow, that one's kind of, I don't think there's any like efficiency quantifier for that because it all depends on the game. So just recognize if you're buying an armor item and a health item, make sure you're going against crit people if you want this. Otherwise, you have Dead Man's Plate and Sunfire as better options.
So
I was mistaken.
I would
Go
say
ahead.
with this item, to go to your point, Dom, about it being sneaky good, and it definitely could be because they are normalizing the price of all marksman items, with Eye Edge becoming 100 gold cheaper, and Eye Edge, Essence Reaver, Blade of the Rune King are all going to cost the same amount, potentially meaning that we see more critical strike champions come out. Like 80 carries and whatnot. So that's why I say it could be really sneaky good with those items becoming a little bit cheaper.
Also, you should be buying Randuin's every game until they make these changes, because it's the same amount of money as a Sunfire cape or as a Dead Man's Plate, but you get more armor. Same amount of health, you get more armor.
Yeah,
Passive is great. The passives are great. The active is great.
I don't like Dead Man's Plate right
Dead
now.
Man's is terrible.
I think Dead Man's is a noob trap item for most excuse me, for most players, and just most champions. I think it's a noob trap item to pick up. It's kind of one of those, if you're already ahead, you should be building it. Otherwise, you should never be rushing the item because it's not good enough to rush anymore. I know that's
I think there are like a couple champions who really do get a lot out of it. At least Sin's kind of one of those, just because he's moving around so much, he quickly stacks it back up. But
Other than that, not really. There's no really reason to have it, right?
Like Renekton, you see Renekton players getting it all the time, and they shouldn't.
Well, I mean, now if you're ahead, if you're ahead as Renekton and you need an armor item, you might as well get it because it does continue to give you health and stats and stuff. You don't necessarily need Randuins.
It's extra burst. You're getting extra burst from that is the thing. Like you're getting a bit more ahead, but still itemizing for things later.
I mean, how far ahead would you say you need to be to get that?
Well,
I don't know. I'm just saying in the comparison to Randuin's giving you not really damage. Like obviously you can get a slow off of it, but I'm saying like if you're talking about a burst combo like Renekton does, then that's all I mean.
So Sunfire Cape is being changed in this patch as well. Health reduced from 500 to 425, and armor increased to 60, making it still
from 50.
From 50, thank you. Still making a fantastic item to build. Cinder Hulk and Sunfire Cape.
This is where we might have a differing opinion.
That's fair. Unique passive Immolate. Damage changed to 11 plus 1 per level, and the bonus damage to monsters and minions increased to 200%.
Yeah. So, currently, Sunfire Cape does 25 plus 1 per level. It is the current live amount, so it goes up to 43 per second. But it gives you 50% bonus magic damage to minions and monsters. The phrasing of this is kind of funky to me because I don't know if you're getting now 4 times the bonus damage to minions and monsters, or it's just being up to now it does 200%, and I don't know what that means because I'm gonna guess that it means it's 400, like it does triple damage to minions.
That's what I take it to.
I would assume so. Okay, so you're getting a little bit of a buff there, but overall it is a significant nerf in terms of damage in team fights and to enemy champions. I mean, well, people below me just cheered, so I'm guessing that the Preds just scored. Damn it!
It's at max level, it's 87 damage a second to minions and monsters, which is meaningful. And I think they're just clearly saying, okay, it's split push time, and then also junglers are going to have to, some junglers got to buy this because it's the tank option.
So I still think this item is decently fine to buy in lane. Maybe not necessarily rush, but I do think that if you are surviving and you just need help clearing the minions, it's still a really good item to pull out of top lane. Because if you remember back to patch 4.1 or back in the 4 and 3s when this item got changed because it was being built on everybody, it used to do 40 damage to everything, and then they nerfed it down to 25, and people were like, oh, we can't build this anymore. And Bombi Cinder comes around, and they're like, well, this item is actually pretty decent. And it's still doing the same amount it was previously. If people stop building it, I honestly feel like it's going to be knee-jerk. It helps with split pushing so much more now than it previously did. And it just gives you a little bit less tankiness.
I mean, I think there are a number of champions that kind of wanted to split push, but didn't quite have it because their kits were okay for it, but there weren't great items for it and everything, and they're going to go for this. This certainly helps Shen a lot.
Sure.
I think that they only really did this because if they're concerned about the damage to champions, they have to make up for it somewhere else. Otherwise, Sunfire is just worthless. And so I think they just said, we got to put the power back somewhere in the terms of the burn. And I don't think it's going to be that good. I feel like this might... I guess the split push is probably the only place where this makes sense for it to be really good. And I guess Cinder Hulk buyers will like it in the jungle early, but... It feels like a rough nerf.
While we are doing these shows, should we keep a list of who says what is going to be good or bad?
No, we should have, but we should have been doing that for
420 episodes.
Yeah,
sure,
I think starting from this point, I could pretty much go back. I think starting from this episode, I'm going to go back and listen to the first 30 minutes after it comes out. I think I'm going to start keeping a tally of what people say is good, bad, or indifferent so that we can always look back on it. Not so much so we can go, well, you're always bad at this, but because it's fun when 2 people disagree and then one person is right, so we can always see, if they get an argument, who's right and who's wrong.
Yeah, you know what's great about this? It's just like with relationships where they say don't keep tallies. This is the same fucking thing because that'll only go great if we go and bring it back up. Hey guys, we don't have anything to talk about this episode. Let's talk about who was right this one time, and we'll get some points out. Hooray!
No, so that way, so the listeners know who to just mute.
Who to listen to? From then, okay, yeah. This is you were a terrible podcast host if that's the way you want to do it, because that's going to undermine so many people's opinions, or they get kicked off. Who knows?
I'm a host, not your lover. I can do whatever the fuck I want.
I see it both ways. All right, what's up next?
Sterak's gage or gage. I don't know what the fuck it is. There's no U in it though. Just like this relationship, there's no U. I made him take his headset off. Perfect. Attack damage increased from 25% to 30%. Shield value increased from 30% of max health to 75% of bonus health. Sterak's Fury, by the way, Serial is crying. Sterak's Fury passive attack damage increased to 25% to 30%.
I like this. Like, this item needed some love. I think for a lot of those bruisers out there, it throws it right back up into the mix.
Sure, it just doesn't. It makes it so it's not a marksman item for sure.
Yeah,
it used to be that a marksman item. It's I agree.
That 75% bonus health, like that's who they're targeting. Because I think bumping it back up to 30% and then not changing the max health thing would have caused a lot of marksmen to start buying it again.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And like that's a good solution to that issue they were running into.
I mean, this is the same thing with we'll talk Guardian Angel in a little bit. Is the same thing with the reduction of health. They're also changing over things from max health to bonus health, like percentage-based multipliers. And so this is, I mean, I think that, as you just said, is smart for AD carries not to just get carried away with, oh, this is perfect. If they make it this much attack damage, we'll be loving it every single time. So,
is this the new Guardian Angel then for a lot of the champions that were previously getting it? Obviously, like actually Maokai's base attack damage is pretty good too. You know, there are those ability power champions who may not be terribly interested in this, but there are a lot of top laners and you know, good number of junglers too who were otherwise inclined to get Guardian Angel and will have less incentive because of the changes that we're going to get to later. Is this the kind of suitable replacement to that because of that change?
I don't know. Like you're
like, you don't want this early. It doesn't really seem like you want this early because it's only meaningful once you have a good amount of bonus health. But if we're talking like 5th or 6th item, like, you should have a decent amount of bonus health going for you. This will be a meaningful increase to your damage, and then when they start to get cheeky and think that they've killed you, you're coming way back, and you're gonna start fucking shit up real good. I like this change a lot.
I like the change. I don't think it's enough to bring it back to, like, I think that I think 75% of bonus health isn't enough to make it so attractive, because if you think about it, like, a 3,000 health person has, like, I don't know, like, maybe half to 60% of their health from bonus. So like, you're getting some benefit from that change from 30% max to 75% bonus. But like, I think it's going to take like another uptick in the AD, like the base AD up, to help, because it is a base AD buff, and that's, I think, the important distinction, as opposed to like a total AD buff, because that would be insane and that would never work.
Base AD champions are
the bruisers.
Yeah, the bruisers, and a lot of them are going to get a Trinity Force or a fucking Iceborne Gauntlet and everything, and this improves the damage out of those items too.
I agree, but those don't synergize super well. Like, the two of those items that you just named don't go well with this, because if those are your items prior to it, your bonus health is complete shit. You have none of it.
Iceborne Gauntlet, Triforce,
Iceborne Gauntlet gives you 0
health items, and then this.
No, I agree. Like, as like, you're talking about this as like a super late item, which I agree, if you're going to take that
just
kind
to throw it out there, if you have 1,200 bonus health, which is not that hard to get, 75% of that is 900. That's a considerable amount of health to get in an emergency situation. When opponents have already blown their payload trying to kill you, all of a sudden have 900 more health.
I agree. I think it's going to take a more AD for it to be viable, though.
I think it's really good.
Well, here you go. Hey, mark that one down.
Yeah, put that one on the board, Adam.
That's our first one.
Because this one, it's still, unless they changed it and it wasn't documented on Surrender 20, it's still coming with 400 health.
I think they would have to remove Jerem's Fist from Titanic Hydro. Actually, no. I think that Alawi is still buying Sterak's, isn't she? Right now, I'm pretty sure that Alawi,
I'll double check, but
this
the champion I have not seen.
I think so. I don't know why. She's still It's in her most frequent build, but it's not in her winningest build. If that makes sense.
I don't pay attention to the winningest build on Champion GG anymore because the winningest build usually is under 100 games, and most frequent core build is significantly more, generally speaking.
It's tough to talk about Alawi because she's not highly played, and I think she has a lot of different play styles.
She's generally the only champion that I see build this item, though. And he put Darius would build it too. Just those heavy bruiser fighter hybrid champions. So I agree. I think this is good on some champions. Warmog's armor, however, now grants Warmog's heart if you have at least 2750 health, down from 3000. Warmog's heart regeneration increased from 3% per 5 seconds to 5% per second. Excuse me, it's per second. So you get 5% per second when you get Warmog's heart. Warmog's heart undamaged time lowered from 8 to 6. Now goes on a 3-second cooldown with damage by minions and monsters.
So I was about to be like, yeah, split pushers are going to go for this item, and then you get to that last point. Oh, they have no interest in this item.
Right. Mundo's like, yes, yes, yes. Oh, that kind of sucks. But I still like it, and he probably end up still buying it.
So they had to change this. They had to change that threshold. Super.
Yeah, there's just less health.
Hey, wait. I think you might be misunderstanding this a little bit. That's actually a great change for the 3 seconds part, because it was saying it was any damage. At least the way I'm reading it presently, any damage made that passive go on cooldown.
Yeah.
So now it's saying that you
taken.
Yeah, that 3 seconds is fine then. Like if you're concerned about minions and monsters, not probably, they already made it 8 seconds before this patch. Now they only make it 3.
Oh, then I did misread it.
Yes, that's how I'm interpreting it.
I interpreted it as like it was
0 before for minions and monsters, and
was it Garen's passive or Misfortunes?
Yeah, Garen's definitely, because we just talked about him on Champion Select. That was an issue. Like you didn't. I think maybe at some level it didn't affect you anymore. But yeah, it's giving you the same thing as what did we talk about last episode? Something was going on passive from taking minions or monsters.
Don't remember.
Damage. Oh, the frost armor from Sejuani.
Oh, okay.
Like where that changed. Yeah, so you still get, like, it'll go on a lower cooldown. I think, split pushers could be okay with this. But the thing about the 250 difference in how much health it takes to start allowing your passive to happen is very important, considering all of those health changes we just talked about.
Yeah.
Because all those items just lost 150 or 75 health. You have to drop that threshold. Otherwise, Warmog's armor just doesn't happen, or it takes another couple levels or items.
You have to keep buying Warmog's armor just to get the passive.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always been the premier health item, and that didn't change here. Because there is kind of less health to go around, I think this item does increase in value.
I think it goes up in value a ton, because you end up like, if everyone has to buy a more heavy armor item but with less health, and you're like, I still and Magic Resist has the same thing, you're saying, I need to make up that difference. I have a lot more resistances than I normally had, but now I need that health. Like this in combination with the
Adam's going to hate this, but does Frozen Mallet go up in value now because it's the second highest health? There's less health overall, and it has attack damage and a passive. It has a passive.
So I just want to put this in perspective that a base health Mundo with adding nothing, right? No runes, no masteries. He doesn't. If he just bought Warmogs, it would take him to level 17 to even start proccing the Warmog's heart. So if you buy a flat Warmogs with Mundo, even with some of the additional items, you're not getting it until your high teens. So yes, he's not going to buy. Obviously, Mundo's not going to end up buying a Frozen Mallet, at least not likely, but he could. But it does incentivize you to buy at least one other, like a Sunfire cape or something else.
I don't know,
to be able to hit
Spirit
that
Visage. Spirit Visage on
threshold.
Mundo is kind of like a good item on him.
It is.
I mean, just to throw a couple perspective changes out there. Once Randuin's Sunfire Cape and Dead Man's Plate get their health reduced, Righteous Glory Eye of the Equinox and Ruby Sightstone have the third most health.
What do they have?
500.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because Spirit Visage is also going down, right?
Yep, 425 from 500.
Yeah. So
Hey,
once
that's
all
nice.
those, I mean, there is like health is hard to come by. Bulk health is really hard to come by.
Oh yeah, when you're knocking 150 off of each item for sure. Or
Yeah, I think
75 to 150.
I think that once we see how big these health changes are, like Warmogs could become a good the good makeup point for that. But like the passive is so interesting because you either have to, like you're saying, be split pushing to get full advantage of it, or have like a poke scenario or very like small guerrilla style engages to get any value out of it in terms of team fights, because otherwise you just have a huge health pool, which is not bad, but you don't get the big portion of Warmogs, which is that crazy amount of health regen, which in this case gets you up to full health in 20 seconds if you were at 0, which doesn't happen unless you, I don't know, die.
Well, you add that on top of getting some
your actual
ocean
regeneration
drinks
too,
and
yeah.
whatnot. And you're gaining tons of life.
Yeah.
It's not unheard of. I mean, Warmogs is still fantastic, but we're pretty much dissecting Warmogs as a whole, and in a vacuum it probably doesn't work well, but actually in game under the right circumstances it works fantastic. And it's not even a vacuum in the in game when it works well. It's just you purchase it after you have a couple health items. The difference now is, like we've been saying, how much health can you actually get to be able to get to that threshold?
Boy, there are like we've kind of overlooked this in the course of the conversation, but there are a lot of champions who have abilities scaling with maximum health who kind of low key get hit by all this.
Tank champions specifically.
Yeah, for the most part and everything, but even like Gnar has some health.
Sure. Gnar.
Yeah, I mean, there are just like a lot of champions out there who have health scaling and are going to end up getting hit by this.
I mean, just out of that example.
That's fine. They probably needed it. Like tanks have been like slowly getting out of control to the point where ineffectiveness as an 80 carry was the meme of the year. But like I just it's only now that I'm looking at the number of champions with these health scaling abilities that I realize the scope of the changes to health.
Let's talk about some more health items then, as we have a few more left to get to before the end of the show. Spirit Visage, we've hinted at this. Health lowered to 425. Magic Resist is now 60 from 55. Unique passive healing increased to 30%. So removing a little bit of health to give you some extra stats with the Spirit Visage. We've kind of gone over that. So I'm just going to go ahead and go to Abyssal Scepter. The build path for Abyssal Scepter is now Spectre's Cowl, Negatron Cloak, and 880 gold. It costs 2,800 gold total. You get 300 health, 65 magic resist, 100% health, base health regeneration, 10% CDR, and nearby enemy champions take 10% more magic damage. So the big pieces out of this to look at is that you are gaining health by picking this item up, turning this into a tank item more so than not necessarily tank, but like a bruiser / tank item, more so than a mage item. Even potentially a support item.
I mean, the main thing to note is that pretty much Abyssal Scepter and Banshee's Veil are trading their base stats, but not their unique passives.
Right.
Whereas Banshee's Veil is getting, I guess. This is weird. This is weird to like phrase it because they both now have cooldown reduction.
That was the notable thing. Like Banshee's Veil didn't used to have cooldown reduction, but the new Abyssal Scepter it keeps the cooldown reduction that it had and everything. But that was something that Banshee's Veil didn't previously have, so it's kind of an across the board improvement there.
Well, let's talk about Banshee's Veil real quick before we get into it, because they are swapping these weird roles. Banshee's Veil, Fiendish Codex, no magic mantle, blasting wand, 500 gold, 2,700 gold in total, 70 ability power, 45 magic resist, 10% cooldown reduction, and it still grants the spell shield that blocks enemy spells for 40 seconds, or every 40 seconds.
I honestly love these two changes, and out of everything that they're doing in this patch, I think this is going to actually be my favorite.
It scares me. The Banshee's Veil scares me because mid laners don't need two defensive items with high ability power on them and cooldown reduction.
Okay, that's a good point. My counter is that they also don't have a good way of Abyssal Scepter even was a bad way of dealing with mid lane opponents. Mm-hmm. Like it was really it really just came down to whose abilities were better or who knew how to use their abilities better, and now you can kind of mitigate that a little bit by building a defensive side in there. But the bigger thing that I like is that they're moving tank items away from just like doubling down on all of the durability. Banshee's Veil gave tanks extra durability. You had to figure out how to poke that fucking shield down just so you could start dealing damage to champions that already were going to be soaking up a lot of damage and laughing about it. Guardian Angel, like you had to work so hard to kill these tanks, and then they would come back to life with a bunch of health and all the resistances and be impossible to kill again. I'm really, really happy with this change from that angle.
I am not happy with this change because I feel like Banshee's Veil is busted as fuck. If you watch the NALCS finals, Bjergsen purchased a no magic mantle early into Syndra as Ahri, and it actually saved him a couple times from some full and burst combos. So thinking about this person who's already building a no magic mantle early to try to counter his opponent, now is able to build that into an item that is giving him a way to block spells, giving him cooldown reduction and ability power on top of a ton of magic resist. This item is scary good.
How is that any different from Zanya's? Like if you were an AP champion,
attack and everything.
No. What I'm saying, if you were an AP champion going up against an AD champion, you would buy the early Seeker's Arm Guard. Like that's the exact same logic. This is no different than against an AD matchup.
It is because you're blocking. You're completely and totally negating.
Once you finish the item, absolutely, and you have the stasis on the other side that'll get you out of trouble and everything. But as far as the early component that you were talking about and you were remarking on with respect to Bjergsen and everything, this is no different than you would otherwise do against an AD champion. It's a calculated decision to get resistances as opposed to
I'm talking
more
about
damage.
No Magic Mantle because No Magic Mantle currently doesn't build into any good items besides Abyssal Scepter, so you have to invest that early No Magic Mantle either into an early Abyssal Scepter, which we all know isn't great. I honestly don't remember what he ended up building after that or if he finished the Abyssal Scepter, but No Magic Mantle currently doesn't build it into any good AP items, so that ends up turning this into a busted mid-lane item because it automatically gives you free stats to be able to fight the enemy or whatever it may be. Whoever's ahead is more ahead because they're able to build this item.
Yeah, I feel like I should have more of an opinion as like a converted mid laner in terms of the stats portion that you guys are arguing about, but I feel very good about the fact that they switched the passives is the thing that I think is very, very good in my opinion, is the fact that now tanks don't have that shield, which is annoying, but B, the Abyssal Scepter giving the nearby enemy champions take more damage aura is now built onto champions that should be near enemy champions as opposed to the mid laner trying to get really close and having to go out of their way to get full efficiency from their build, which I never liked. I don't think I've built Abyssal Scepter since I've switched to mid lane, but it was already kind of bad by that point, so I don't know when I would have.
It's definitely great for champions in 3 different roles in the game, and that's a really, really good thing. I mean, there are a lot of top laners that will give that item a hard look, a lot of junglers, a lot of supports. I mean, it's on the fringe as far as support items go, and you're definitely not looking at it until like 5th or 6th item territory. But if you're a support who can say, hey, I can bump up my half of my team's damage by 10%, I'm gonna do that.
I think that there's also like they're taking away the obviously one of the most annoying items from the first half of the season was Edge of Night, when it had the crazy amount of like 1/3 of uptime on a skill or on a spell shield that you could just activate whenever you wanted. That was ridiculous. Now they're taking away another spell shield that is less easy to use, obviously, because you have to have not taken damage, but they're taking it away from everybody and now moving it only onto people who want AP. Like there's not a lot of champions outside of mid lane that are going to be like, yo, I really want to build Banshee's Veil, even though this is the most frustrating thing to say right now because it counteracts 7 seasons of playing this game and being like Banshee's Veil is an item that like has all these healthy stats. Now it doesn't. It feels so weird to have to change that because it's been here for so long. But
Adam, to your point, like I do think this more or less becomes a core item in most mage builds, in in most matchups. And
Sure.
I think that's what you are. Like, that's really what you're worried about,
That's
right?
really
This
what I'm
item
arguing,
just
is
all of
this-
a sudden being in every single game.
Absolutely. This becomes almost first rush everybody item because it negates laning phase. Or makes it harder.
okay, so the flip side is,
I could-
with this item in the game, are you suddenly worried about Katarina anymore?
With this item being in the game. I don't know.
Like, because
Katarina-
she's not nearly gonna snowball nearly as easily. Yes, she has some invulnerability, but now she has to work a little bit harder to get that damage.
You do realize that like Katarina jumping in with Banshee's Veil shield up means that it's
Yeah, I
harder
suppose.
for her.
Yeah,
her
I mean, that's
ultimate to get stopped.
terrifying.
Right.
But
That is actually terrifying.
Katarina against Ari is going to have a harder time keeping that shield up.
I think
I think I
here's the
can-
thing.
I was going
I think
to say, I think you could argue the other way, though, because a lot of times the Katarina is already snowballing pre-2700 gold on the enemy champion, so, that argument.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it doesn't change anything. I mean, and I guess that's the point. It's like every single mid laner now has access to this item.
Right.
So if every single mid laner is going to be buying it, then what does it really change in mid lane?
I think one thing that they are trying to do here is give a few more options back to mid lane, because I think it's been for a while now has been a season of Morello and Ludens, and of course Zhonya's is always going to be there. But they took away two items that had been very prominent on a lot of mid laners, with the old Abyssal Scepter, which was almost a first rush in a lot of games. There was a probably full half season that Abyssal Scepter was the rush in mid lane, and then Rylai's got nerfed to shit, where it was a core build on a lot of champions, and that switched the meta. Like, Victor fell out of complete favor right after that. I think that they're saying we need to give another item back. We're trying to switch that up a little bit, but not completely influence the meta super hard. I think that this will do that. I agree. This is going to be a core item for pretty much every mid laner, because I will be buying this all the time. Because why not?
I mean, what are you going to go? You're going to go.
You're dealing damage, and you're getting CDR, and you're getting safety. Like, I can't see, especially on the more immobile AP carries, you're going to love this.
Are you
I don't know what the
go
build is,
Lost
but-
Chapter Banshee's Veil or Morello Namicon Banshee's Veil? On a lot of those champions and everything. Because the
matchup
mana,
dependent.
like the thing lacking this mana is kind of the big issue there.
It's
But I
100%.
mean, no matter what you do, that's putting you at 30% cooldown reduction, by
It's
25.
100% matchup dependent. It's 100% matchup dependent how you want to build it, because not everybody needs to. I mean, Morello Namicon is really nice on the mid laners. I'm sorry to steal your thunder, but Morello Namicon, while nice on a lot of them, that's why, like, for example, pros are pros because they know how to manage their mana without the Morello Namicon, right? They don't need to build that item early. That's why Beershing can build no Magic Mantle on Ari against a Syndra early instead of going into a Morello or Ludens.
I think that what I've been doing a lot is like a Lost Chapter and then evaluating. Like, a Lost Chapter just is very good early on, because you're going to get a bunch of level up bonuses across the entire rest of the game. And I found like building that and then going Ludens and just hanging on to it for a while, similar to that Null Magic Mantle. So
maybe an important question worth asking is, does this item low-key hit people that are going to be getting tier first?
I don't think anyone is building tier first, like, at all.
Nivea.
Yeah, one champion out of 100 and what?
Okay.
30 or whatever.
No, I'm just thinking, like, so if Anivia is getting tier and then buys other stuff and then gets to Seraphs, like, this kind of hits that type of champion just by virtue of, you don't have that early ability power like a lot of opponents will. So suddenly Banshee's Veil, the magic resist is a big impactor on the effectiveness of those abilities.
It's the magic
I don't
resist
think it's going to be as early an item as you're making it out to be. I think that it's going to be late enough where it would be like a third or fourth kind of item. Like, I think you need the full CDR and full damage, and then you worry about this. I could be very wrong.
So you're thinking nobody's going to go for it, or people are going to go for the null magic mantle, knowing that they can turn it into something useful later?
I think that happens in a scenario where you're scared of getting bursted down, like the matchup we talked about in LCS. Syndra is the champion who really does that, and you have to worry about an early combo and just falling behind. And that one makes sense. I think if you need to sit on it, sure. I think that most champions and most people will not sit on that. I think that you will
I
probably
mean, like LeBlanc's another one of those where an early null magic mantle is going to make a huge difference in your ability to live.
If your matchup requires you to go for something early to mitigate falling so far behind that you just lose the game, sure, I have no problem with that, and that would be great to build into later. I still think that this will be a good item to build, even if you don't buy that early. I'm saying I think it will be like a third or fourth item, regardless, because having that extra safety as a mid laner will be very nice, especially if you're mobile and there's running picks or who knows.
Well, we are at over an hour, so let's make sure we get in the last item here before we get too far into Banshee's Veil.
And this one has so much too.
The Guardian Angel build path is completely changed. This is now a BF sword, cloth armor, 800 gold, 2,400 gold total, 40 attack damage, 30 armor. Unique passive: upon taking lethal damage, restores 50% of your base health and 30% of maximum mana after 4 seconds of stasis. 300-second cooldown. So, I am worried about Guardian's Angel going into the future for champions like Aurelia and a second or third item on a lot of the assassin characters, as well as I think this can be abused by Yasuo's can end up abusing this. I think a lot of people can abuse this after an item.
I mean, it's really helpful for the AD carries who've been struggling at dealing with the assassins, because against Zeds and Talons, you get a little bit of reprieve from the armor. But then even when LeBlanc shows up, murders you, and then runs away, you get to go, ha ha ha, I'm coming back, fucker. And so I like it as something to really help out the AD carries. But yeah, I gotta share that concern. I think there are a lot of. I mean, what does Yasuo need? 2 items before he's buying this?
Pretty much PD, and then
one
he can
item.
Buy this. Yeah, he pretty much only needs PD, and then you're not at 100%, but you're at close enough. Because like the tank, what was the tank Yasuo build was pretty much PD into Frozen Mallet, right? And like there's like this is extra attack damage and health. I'm scared that this item in the wrong or right hands, however you want to look at it, becomes busted. Akali, Katarina. Who else?
Yeah, the other thing is that those champions that you're scared of, if they're getting that pretty early, are not getting any bonus combat stats from they're getting a little bit more armor, but not a bunch of combat stats from the combine. The 40 attack damage is equal to what you'll get from BF sword. So besides obviously the revive and being able to fight longer, you're not getting like a burst of attack damage, which I think is very smart, considering if you did, it would seem like why are you trying to give extra stats there?
See, I'm scared of this as like a 5th item on some of the champions you talked about, like Aurelia, Kled, Fiora, like that type of champion, where all of a sudden, they might not have been looking at Guardian Angel because it didn't help them do the things they wanted to do better, but now they're like, oh, hey, all right, I'm going to come back from the dead and really ruin somebody's day.
So the thing that I know...
Yeah. He's going to come back from the dead twice.
Yeah, exactly. I noted this in the notes, which it seems redundant to say, I guess. But the bigger change to me was the change of instead of having the previous health restoration was the greater of 700 health or 30% of your maximum health, where it is now 50% of your base health. And I just checked because I was curious. The minimum amount of health you can get at level 18 is Gnar at like 1600, which would be 800 in that sense, which is higher than both of the previous ones. But like you're helping out champions that don't build health in this scenario. You're not getting punished for not building health. Whereas people who built Guardian Angel previously, who had like a shit ton of health, might come back with a ton. But now instead you have a much lower pool. It might not be as scary on tanks who say, I still want to have that revive, even though the AD doesn't benefit me, but I'm coming back with such a really weird and low health pool. It's only like 1,000.
I mean, it's also like that's a bad tank item now.
Yeah, it's really it got rid of it on tank items when we're already getting
an
influx of tank items. So why not?
I'm fine with this again moving away from tanks, just because they were already so hard to kill that you have to turn around and kill them a second time when they're so durable was a really, really tall order. And we've just gone along with it for 7 seasons because Riot never said, hey, there's an alternative possibility here. But now that this change to Guardian Angel is in place, it's sort of like, why didn't this happen in season 3?
See, back in season 3 was when everybody
when everybody was buying it.
Built
the
five
League of Guardian Angels.
Right. So I don't think it's going to be League of Guardian Angels by any means. The only item I could see here, it's not even like Banshee's Veil. Like Banshee's Veil is probably the only item out of this whole thing. Banshee's Veil and Abyssal Scepter are the two that I'm really scared of. I'm very excited to next Monday talk about some of the other items that are being changed, because I think there's some really good changes for marksman and whatnot coming, but we will roll through that when we get there, especially like Death's Dance is being changed. The marksman items are all
support items. Hello, we've got a bunch to talk about support items.
And the support items, yeah, there's a whole fuckload there. That's why I said even if we go to the patch, it might just be like, hey, here are the support items. We're talking about that for half an hour.
We copied Hearthstone. We've got quests now. Let's go.
I'm mostly not a fan of those changes.
Really?
Their money. I like the ones to the Relic Shield line, and otherwise...
Yeah, really. I'm kind of in the same boat as Dom here. Not
like,
excited.
you're getting bonus stuff when it doesn't nerf them.
We'll save it for Monday. I have specific reasons for it.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll talk about it on Monday. I'm gonna end it there because we're at just over an hour, and we like to keep these podcasts to an hour. Guys, patreon.com/TForce Network. If you really, really enjoyed our discussion tonight, please consider going and donating to us. I'm going to say the cliche, if everybody donated $1, we'd all be rich people and be able to quit our jobs, because it'd be a fantastic amount of money every month.
Well,
However,
you'd be a rich person who could quit his job.
No, I wouldn't do that, because I have mouths to feed. No, but you know what? Go and donate. $1, $5, $10, whatever it may be. $25 a month. If you guys didn't know this, we do replay reviews. I have heard through the grapevine that our Summoner School does do free ones. However, if you are bronze, not a lot of people will take a look at you, because you are bronze. I've actually heard that from more than one person say that they try to post in there they're bronze and no one will look at my replay reviews because they feel like the bronze players cannot be saved. I don't feel like you can't be saved. I feel like I can save you and pull you through silver into gold this season.
We'll do it. I've been there. Sean's been there.
I need to bring this up just because Adam went on the rant for a second there, and a good rant, mind you. But Dom said you'd be a rich person, and Adam's response wasn't, no, I would pay all of you guys money. It was, no, I've got mouths to feed, so I couldn't quit my job too. That was your response. Thanks, buddy.
It's more of, I'm not willing to pay myself without paying everybody else.
Yeah, you didn't. That's not how it sounded.
I understand how it sounded. I figured you were laughing at that. Nah. I'd end up giving everybody a little bit of piece of the pie, because I'm not ready to quit my job to work on this. There is, so patreon.com/TForce Network. As soon as you put your credit card in there, it pays. But seriously, $25 a month, I know it might seem like a lot, but every time a person has had a replay review from us to our own horde, they've always said they've learned a fuckload, and they actually have increased ranks quite rapidly when they have paid the replay reviews.
And you can do like 1 month of 25, and then if it helps you out, then you could keep doing it, or you could drop to a lower tier or drop completely. Like there's nothing to say you have to keep doing it.
Right. Yeah, you can give us $25 a month. We'll give you a replay review, get you out. If that's too rich for your blood, then I don't know what to tell you. But you know what? If you feel like donating to us because you like our content, we would love to take the money and use it to continue to bring you guys better content. Because that's what we are doing with this money, is just using it to try to make you guys better at this game. So guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening to the Trinity Force podcast. We will be back on Monday with more mid-season discussion. Guys, have a good weekend. Everybody enjoy. We will see you then. Good night.
Bye.